Hey bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today we are making what might just be the most edible looking DIY body bath thing I've ever made. I am calling these delicious, fragrant nuggets of fizzy goodness Chocolate Ganache fizzing bath biscuits. I've seen similar projects to this one called bath truffles, where you kind of make a big dough and scoop it out into what looks like gorgeous scoops of ice cream. But as I was working with the dough, I kind of realized that I could form cookies, and then I realized that I had some really fun things that I could use to create sort of sprinkles and drizzlings of icing, and here we are, bath biscuits. These are kind of like a love child between a foaming bath bomb and a bath oil. There's quite a lot of cocoa butter and a touch of liquid oil in there, so when they do disperse into the bath, you do get a really lovely, creamy, rich feeling bath water, but there's also some baking soda that'll react with some citric acid and cream of tartar for some fizzing, and there's some SLSa to add some gorgeous foamy bubbles. The making part of these is pretty easy, and they are a really lovely bath treat and very fun. Just make sure that anybody who might come across them knows that they aren't food. To learn more about this formulation, please make sure you are reading the partner blog post, which is linked in the description box below. You'll find a lot more helpful information there, including information about substitutions, scaling, shelf life, where to buy all the ingredients, and a whole lot more. But come on, let's get started. We're going to begin by combining our heated phase ingredients in a small bowl or measuring cup, something that you can heat up. So we're going to need 15 grams of gorgeous, unrefined cocoa-scented cocoa butter. In this dish, I have 4 grams of a liquid oil. I used apricot kernel this time around, but I've also used jojoba in the past. And then 0.2 grams of a brown mica, something that makes you think of chocolate. And I've just mixed them together here so that the mica gets kind of a kickstart, integrating into the rest of the base ingredients. 40 grams baking soda, 10 grams citric acid, 10 grams cream of tartar, and 20 gram SLSa, sodium lauryl sulfoacetate. For this one, make sure you're weighing it out with a dust mask on, and don't agitate it too much because inhaling it is awful. Now we're going to melt everything through. I'm gonna pop it in a water bath. This is a small saucepan that has about 1 inch or 3 centimeters of water in the bottom of it, and I'm going to go put this on the stove over medium heat for about half an hour to melt everything through. So after a while, you're gonna end up with a mixture a bit like this, kind of a chunky, lumpy dough. So I obviously gave this a bit of a stir and a poke and a turn over on the stovetop, but we need to obviously get this to incorporate a little bit more thoroughly. So I find for this, a spoon is really quite useful. I would usually do this just, over the stovetop, but kind of for the video, I've brought it in here so that you can see things happen. If you feel like you're not going to be able to tell when the cocoa butter is fully melted, you can melt that on its own first and then add the powdered ingredients. I'm just going to pull this out of here because it's sure making a lot of noise. I think if you had a larger batch, like a much larger batch, you could do this in a stand mixer. Like the KitchenAid sort of stirring aid attachment would work, I think, really quite nicely and would save you a bit of hands-on time. But for a smaller batch like this, kind of doing it in a giant stand mixer is probably more trouble than it's worth. Once the cookie dough's been off the heat for a while and cooled down a bit, we can add our fragrance. So for this, I'm going to use this gorgeous Chocolate Ganache fragrance oil from Brambleberry, and we're going to need 0.8 grams of that. And holy cow, my mouth is watering. I want a chocolate cake so badly right now. Just gonna give that a good mashing in as well. So our next step is kind of letting this cool enough that it is workable so that we can hand mold it into some little cookies. So this is still, it's a little warm, it's a little uncomfortable to handle, but not too bad. But it's still just a little softer than I want it to be, so I'm just gonna leave it to sit for about 2 minutes now. All right, that's pretty workable. You can see it's kind of just like a semi-soft Play-Doh. It's not really hot, so I'm going to kind of roughly divide this into 6 little cookies and set them out on a sheet of parchment paper. Just to really give you an idea of kind of the consistency of this, it really is, as it, especially as it cools down a bit, just like quite a lovely kind of Play-Doh-y substance that you could form into a variety of shapes, whatever sort of tickles your fancy. Well, there's our little formed biscuits, and then I was doing kind of a little thumbprint indentation on them. And now we can decorate them. For decorating, I've got a couple fun things here. So these are both from Brambleberry, as you can see. And so they're kind of gonna look like sprinkles. These are from their new desserts collection, which is also where the fragrance oil is from. And honestly, if you don't have these, you could probably just use like actual kitchen sprinkles, because they're gonna be mostly sugar, right? And they'll just dissolve in your bath water. Then we are going to finish off with a bit of quote-unquote frosting. So this is some brown chocolatey looking mica whisked up with a bit of 99% isopropyl alcohol. So it kind of gives us, this liquidy consistency that we can drizzle over our cookies. And then that alcohol will evaporate off quite rapidly, just leaving us with lovely visual drizzles that look utterly delicious. So our next step is going to be leaving these to dry for at least a day before using them. They'll get quite a lot firmer. So this is an older batch. You can kind of see it's quite a lot firmer. I'm not going to do that with one of those because I will destroy it. But yeah, they do gain a lot more sort of structural integrity as you just sort of leave them to dry out and age. And so this is the same thing, but I used a bronze mica for the base rather than the dark brown ones. So these are like, I don't know, caramel cookies, and then these ones are more like ultra dark chocolate cookies. Now to use these, you're gonna wanna crumble 1 or 2 of them into your bath as it's running. Of course, it's a little hard for me to have a running bathtub in my studio, so I'm gonna try to simulate it by agitating the water with this mixer here and then adding this as we go. I'd say that worked reasonably well. See, some gorgeous lather. Oh, the bath water just feels amazing. There are still some solids down at the bottom here, but as I agitate them, they're just breaking up. And oh my gosh, this quote-unquote bath water feels absolutely decadent. Just, yes, okay. Huge fan. Smells like chocolate too. Man, I want some cookies. And there we go. So we just made some downright edible looking chocolate ganache fizzing bath biscuits. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and please make sure you are reading the partner blog post, which is linked in the description box below. You'll find a lot more information there, including information about substitutions, scaling, shelf life, links to places to buy all the ingredients, and a whole lot more. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.